you're on.
All right. Good morning, gentlemen. Today is Daf Mem Vav, Mesachas Pesachim. So we left off yesterday, 2 dots at the bottom of Mem Hey Amud Beis. So we were discussing there. It was a quote from the Mishnah. So if you're just going back to the Mishnah, we talked about if there was some dough that was left in the cracks. So we said if there's a kazayas, we were talking about it in terms of a trough. If it was a kazayas, the Mishnah said, I have to sort of go back on the Mishnah because then I'll explain the first kasha of the Gemara. So the Mishnah there says, if there's a kazayas, then he has to go back and destroy it. But if there's not, then it's batal, on its own. And then the Gemara says, but also when it comes to tuma, if he's makpid on it, then it's a chatzitza. And if he wants it there, then it's just like the trough. It's the trough itself. So the Gemara says on the bottom of Mem Hey Amud Beis, so that was a quote from the Mishnah. So too when it comes to tuma, right? If he's makpid on it, then it's a chatzitza. But if he wants it there, then it's a reva. So the Gemara says, mi dami. So normally when it says v'chein, right, it's assuming the same law that we just explained applies to the next case. So v'chein, the Gemara says midami, hasan b'shir talia milsa. Over there, it had to do with the shear, right? The first part of the ratio was if it's a kazayas, right, then you have to destroy it. If it's not a kazayas, then it's not. And then when it comes to tuma, it says over there if he wants it there or if he doesn't want it there. So it's a completely different halacha. So Gemara gives a couple terutzim. Some of Yehuda ema lo'inya tuma einochen. Right? When it comes to tuma, it's not like this. When it comes to tuma, it doesn't have to do with necessarily with the shear, with the size. Rather, it has to do with the fact whether he wants it there or not. The Gemara says, Amar le Abaye, v'ha v'chein linyan tuma ktani. It says v'chein. It doesn't say right when it comes to tuma einochen. It says v'chein linyan tuma ktani. So El Amar Abaye gives another teretz. Hachi kamer. This is what it means to say v'chein. Right, top of the page. Le'inyan tziruf tuma b'pesach v'shayim. So too, when it comes with the tziruf, the to combine it with other chametz, right, on Pesach. V'shayim shana ika pluksa. During other days of the year, there's a machlokas. Just over here, on Pesach is now. What do you mean? Hey chidam, what's the case? Going to ika pachas mikazayis eichlin. The nagu b'hai betzak. Perhaps there is less than a kazayis of food. And it touches and it combines with this dough in order for that to be tummy, right? You need a minimum shear for something to be tummy. Food doesn't become tummy if it's a speck. It has to be a minimum shear of a kibetza. So now during Pesach, the surah chashuv, during Pesach, when we say everything is significant, it's chashuv, therefore it's mitzdarif. And b'shayim masashara, but during the other days of the year, the kabita tell you milsa. Over there, it's makbid. Over there, whether he wants it or not, he makbid alav mitzdarif. He writes b'kiyumo hareu kareva. If he's makbid, then he is mitzdarif. But if he doesn't care about it, then it's just like the trough itself. So in other words, we're talking about on Pesach. If it's less than a kazai, since it's chashuv, there's an isser of chametz, therefore makes it chashuv. Therefore, it's always it always combines. Therefore, it depends if it's a kazai or not. During the rest of the year, it depends whether he's makbid. The Gemara says maskva rava miktani mitzarif. Does our Mishnah talk about tziruf? It just says the chelin and tuma. It doesn't say tziruf tuma. V'achaitzitz ktani. It's talking about chatzitza. Right, it's not talking about during being mistarif. Rava says no. Here's what I mean to say: v'chein lahalois tahara la'areva. Right, we're talking about a person. Let's say the areva, the trough itself becomes tameh, and he wants to go ahead and be toivelit, right? And he wants to remove the tumah from it. So then, in such a case, so what's the case? In other words, when this trough becomes tameh. And now he wants to go ahead and be toivelit. Now, the Pesach, the Isser Chashuv, during Pesach, when the Isser is Chashuv, the dough, Chaitzes, V'loi Sakle Tefillah. It's always the Chatzitza, and therefore is Makbet Tefillah. However, Bishar Yemois Hashana, however, when it comes during the other days of the year, then it's Bekabeta Tali Milsa, then it's the other days of the year, then it's whether he's makbet on it. If he's makbet on this dough being there, then he can't go ahead and put it in the mikvah, because to him, right, he's makbet on it, and therefore you have to go ahead and remove it before you go ahead and put it in the mikvah. But if he doesn't care about it, he's going to leave it on it permanently, then Harehu Kareva, then you can go ahead and be toivelet, and therefore it's considered to be part of the trough itself. So I'm asking Rav Papa, Miktani v'chein le'inyan tahara. Does it say le'inyan tahara? It says le'inyan tuma, right? So it says we're talking about being when for something is tameh, and over here you're talking about it has to do with the process of being matayr something by putting the mikvah. Right, so the Gemara scratches that teretz. It says Elam Rav Papa v'chein le'inyan lahorid tuma la'areva. It says in order to basically do we say that it's tameh and as a reva heichi dummy could go in denaga sheretz b'hai betzek. Let's say a sheretz touched this dough, right? That was on the trough. The Pesach, the Isser Chashuv on Pesach, when the Isser, in other words, when there is the Isser, and therefore everything, even if small detail or is small in size, is Chashuv, then Chaitzitz, that is considered a Chatzitza, and therefore, because of the Isser Chashuv Chaitzitz, and the Loy Nachla Tuma. And therefore, the tuma does not go parted. However, Beishari Masashama, but it comes other days of the year, the Kpeda Talia, then it makes a difference whether he wants it there or not. If he's talking about a case that he doesn't want it there, so therefore it's a chatzitza, right? It's considered to be a chatzitza because now the air it's chashuv and he doesn't want it there, and therefore it's a chatzitza. And imra to be kiyuma harei kareva. But if he wants it to be there, right, or he doesn't mind it being here, then it's just like the trough, and therefore it's basically as if the sheretz not only touched the dough, but it touched the areva, and therefore the areva would be tameh in such a case. Fine. So that was the explaining of the previous Mishnah. So now we get to the next Mishnah, Nai Mishnah. Mishnah says middle of Mem Vav Amud Aleph, right in the middle. There's two Mishnahs here. Mishnah. The Batzek HaCherish, right? Cherish is normally a person who's deaf. So Batzek, basically you have a deaf dough, right? The dough here is deaf, i.e. we don't know about it, right? We don't know. It already has whitened, but it hasn't cracked yet, and therefore we don't know whether this, person just comes upon it. He doesn't know whether they're already already started to leaven. So we say im yesh. If we have some other dough that were made the same time and that became chametz, harez aser, then it's aser, right? So if we know that there's an identical dough that was made at basically the same time with it and that became leaven, so too this is also leaven, even though it hasn't cracked yet. It basically signifies, it tells us whether that there's a chatzitz on this one or not. So zak the Gemara. So okay, fine, that works well. If there's another piece of dough that we can go ahead, okay, that's the same as this, that one leavened, so this one also leavened. But what about if we don't know? We have no other information. So Amar Rabbi Yavo, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish, Kadei Shielech Adam Mimigdal Nunya Latveria. So it says no. If basically the dough, right, it wasn't kneaded the whole time and it was left on its own, and if it was basically together from the time it takes to walk from Migdal Nunya to Tveria, then it becomes chametz. And what is that? That is a mill, right? That is a mill, right? Generally, we say that a person to walk a mill is 18 minutes, right? So therefore, if dough, right, or if the dough was basically let there to sit for 18 minutes, or a mill, right, which is, we talk about, 18-minute matzahs, so on and so forth, right? The B'nai Ruvain, the matzah minyan, the 18-minute minyan, right? So that's where we see that the 18 minutes, that we discuss, when it comes to Hilchos Pesach comes in. So if it's basically sitting there, the water and the dough, and it gives it the amount of time for it to begin to leaven, then it'll become tameh. So the Gemara says it'll become chametz. Name a mill. So just say mill. Why do you have to say migdal nunya tveria? So Kamash one, the shear of the mill, migdal nunya about tveria. It comes to teach you what is the shear, right, of a mill, which is the amount it takes to walk from migdal nunya until tveria. And Amar Rabbi Yavo, Amar Rabbi Shimon Lakish, legabel ulatfila ulatiyas adayim arba milim. We have three halachas that was stated regarding 4 mil. Right, 4 mil is 18 times 4 is that's a good question. 18 times 4, right? How many hours is that? That's I hit it before, right? So let's say 4 times 18. 4 is 40 plus 72 minutes, right? 72 minutes. So 72 minutes basically to walk 4 mil. I apologize on my math. I knew it was somewhere around there. I knew it was like a familiar number. So 72 minutes, right? We discussed, 4 mil after Shabbos, people wait 72 minutes. So that's where it comes from, 4 mil. So 4 mil comes to the gabel, right? First of all, is when it coming to basically someone to go ahead and need something. So something is, in order for something to be, if something was tameh, and you need to go ahead and you need someone to go ahead and knead dough. So in such a case, where do you we have a chumrah that you don't go ahead and knead it with kalim that are tameh. So how far do you have to go ahead and find somebody, right, for this chumrah of not to knead something not in tameh? So you have to go 4 mil. If you can't find 4 mil, then it's okay to use these. Also, a person has to go ahead and wash his hands. So how far does one have to travel to go ahead and be able to wash his hands, right? So that also comes to 4 mil. Has to travel up to 72 or up to 72 minutes, 4 mil, to go ahead and wash hands. And excuse me, I skipped on tefillah. And also for tefillah, for one is going daven b'tzibur, right? If he has to go ahead and travel to go ahead to an area to find a minyan, also that is also 72 minutes he should travel. So that was Arba Milim. And Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, so and it says so Ivu Amra, so they said the name of Ivu Arba Amrila, and he said there were 4 of them. Right, it was the 3 that we just mentioned of the Gabel, Tefillah, and Tiasadayim, and he added a 4th one. And what is that? Ibud, right? To go ahead and Ibud is basically working leather, right? Something is normally comes from an animal, right? Animal we eat, that's food, and therefore, if one goes ahead and works it and processes it for tanning, right? So that is the amount of working it for 72 minutes. If it was already been worked for 72 minutes, it loses its status of food and now becomes leather, and therefore it's not susceptible as food tuma. It's not the chulan sheep, and all of them that the person was that he worked them, like a tanner worked them. Oh, shehiluch behen kadei avodat hara, or the amount of time you're going in Torah, chutz me'or ha'adam, except for the skins of a human, those can never lose its status to become leather. And how long does it take for a person to be working the leather? So Amar Rabbi Ivu, Amar Rabbi Yanai, kadei hiluch arba mil, and that's the amount of time it takes to walk 4 mil, like we said, 72 minutes. And Amar Rabbi Yosef Rabbi Chanina lo yishanu el lefanav. That which we said, a person's traveling and he has to go ahead and travel for Netilas Adayim or for minyan or for or to get kalim, to find someone with kalim that are tahor. It's only talking about to go. He's a traveler to go in the direction that he's going. But to go backwards, right? That we say afilu mil in a chayzer. He doesn't go back even a mil. Right? In other words, only going forwards you expect you to 72, but backwards we don't expect you to go all the way out of your way backwards to do it. And Amar Rav Acha umina, from there milhu deina chayzer halpachas a mil chayzer. It sounds like over there only, right, 18, only when it says even a mil means up to a mil, right? In other words, but if it's less than 18 minutes behind you, then we expect you to go ahead and travel. So that what you say arba milim is only if it's still in your way, but if you got to go backwards, then it's only 1 mil. Fine. Naya Mishnah. Mishnah says 3 lines from the bottom. Ketzad mafrishin chala betuma b'yantif.
Naya Mishnah.
So how does one go ahead and be mafrish chala, right? That's tameh on yantif. So there's a couple things there. Now, one is not allowed to go ahead and basically give chala that's tameh to the kohen, right? Because the kohen can't do with. So, and also is an issue if it just sits there, then it's become chametz, right? So how does one go ahead and separate challah that's tameh and yantif? So Rabbi Eliezer Omer leitikra lo shem ad shetiafa, right? You can't. So says Rabbi Eliezer, there's gonna be 3 opinions. So he says don't make it challah, right, until after it's baked. In other words, you can go ahead and bake it, then only go basically afterwards. Go ahead and make it challah, because if you have it just sit there, it'll become chametz. And even though, so according to Rabbi Eliezer, so you are baking this bread that is tmeya. And go ahead, don't go ahead and bake it. Basically, go ahead and put it in cold water, and the cold will prevent it from leavening, and therefore that will prevent it from becoming chametz on Pesach. And the B'Seir Omer, excuse me, that was Rabbi Beseira. And Amar Rabbi Shua, says Rabbi Shua, lo yizehu chametz shemuzarna alav bal yirah bal yimatzei, right? Ela mafrishata b'nicha ad erev. Says no, this is not the chametz that that one is commanded, because remember the challah is not exactly yours, and therefore, right, if you go ahead and if you leave it there and you don't separate it, so it's not necessarily yours that you're chai for bayiro bayimatzei, right? As Rashi points out, right? Rashi sort of hints to the Gemara, says lavdi dehu, right? Right, it's not his after he calls it challah. So since it's not his, so therefore the commandment of bayiro bayimatzei is not on him. Elam afrishasa menichasad erev, rather go ahead and put it aside and leave it to the end of Yantif, and it becomes chametz, but that's not on him because it's no longer his. It's really after he calls it, challah, he doesn't own it anymore. So now, Zak the Gemara. So what is this machlokes between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua? Rabbi Eliezer says, go ahead. He says, basically, don't go ahead and call it challah yet, right? And bake it, right? And therefore, it's yours. And but it's not becoming chametz. In terms of being tuma, so that's fine because it's not become chametz, and therefore you're commanded not to do it. And according to Rabbi Yeshua, he says no, let it become chametz. So let's say the machlokas over here is tovas hana. Now, tovas hana is basically the benefit that one gets from giving gifts. Now, over here, the challah you don't own. You can't sell the challah to a kohen. But what you do get out of it is that by me giving the challah to a kohen, basically I'm finding favor in that person's eyes. So I go ahead and I give it to Rabbi Reese, right? Or to Yehuda Rublo, right? Who's, I'm sure he's watching every day, right? He's part of the shir, at least 5 years ago he was, right? So he's a kohen. So the guy has now appreciation towards you because there's tovas hana. So the Rabbi Eliezer savar tovas hana mamon. Rabbi Eliezer holds that tovas hana is considered. I do own it. I own some regard because I can give it as a gift, and if I give it as a gift, right? So therefore, that challah is really right. Part of is really like I still own it, and Rabbi Yeshua savar. So therefore, according to him, so. Since I still own it, I can go ahead and bake it right now, and it becomes tummy. And Rabbi Yeshua says, no, tovas hana ain't a mammon. Rabbi Yeshua says, no, tovas hana is not considered to be mammon, and therefore, if I put it aside, right, it's not considered mine. Once I call it challah, it's not mine anymore because this tovas hana is not an ownership. So since I don't own it, it's not mammon. So therefore, this challah is not considered to be mine. So Gemara says, "Lo, that's not true. Everybody holds that tovas hana is not considered to be mammon, right? In other words, it's not mine. So if it's not mine, so then then why can't I just leave it and let it become chametz? Over here, they're arguing in the concept of hoil. Since, what do you mean, right? The Rabbi Eliezer saver, Amrina hoil v'iboy it shuli Allah the monahu. Rabbi Eliezer holds that since I can go ahead, and even though it's not mine now, but I had the potential to go ahead and be matir this challah, I can go ahead and renege on the fact that this is challah, and basically make other things challah. So therefore, it still is considered to be mine. If it's still considered to be mine, I can't allow it to become chametz. So therefore, go ahead and bake it. And Rabbi Yeshua saber lo amrin hoel. No, we don't say that, and therefore, even so, l'maisa right now. It's not mammon, it's not mine, and therefore I can allow it to go ahead and become chametz, and I don't have to go ahead and I don't have to. It's not considered mine. If it's not considered mine, therefore I can't go ahead and bake it because it's on Yontif, and I can't go ahead and make it for the Kohanim, and therefore I'll just allow it to become chametz on its own. Now, Itamar. Speaking of basically baking on Yontif for something that will be used afterwards, one who goes ahead and bakes on Yontif, right, for after Yontif, for chol or for afterwards, right, anytime, not just on Pesach, right. One gets malchus because he's preparing for Yontif for afterwards. And Rabbah says, no, you don't. Why? Rav Chisda says he gets malchus. Why? Because Lamaisa, the guy doesn't need the food, and the food is going to be used after Yontif. And we do not say, well, even though I made it on Yontif, it potentially could have been used on Yontif itself, because if I would have had guests knock on my door, I would have given them the extra food I made for chol. So since you don't say that, therefore everything I'm doing is really for after Yontif, and therefore will be in violation. Therefore I get malchus. And Rab Omar in Eloika, Amrin and Hoya. Rabbi says, no, you don't get malchus. Why? Even though I bake extra stuff, cookies, which I'm not going to go ahead and eat now, but if someone knocks on my door, then I could serve them that, and therefore it's for use of Yontif. And it's not for use just after Yontif. It's for now. And why? Because he uses the concept of Hoya. So I'm really Rabbi Rav Chizda. I ladidcha demarta lo yamin Hoya. According to you, it says you don't know. Heich oifin miyontif l'Shabbos. How can you go ahead and bake from Yontif to Shabbos? There's two separate kedushas, right? And therefore, since I'm not going to be using it now, so how can I on Yontif? Let's say Yontif comes out on Friday. So how could I bake on Friday for Shabbos? So mishum erev tashilin. So because no, you make an erev tashilin, you make an erev tashilin. That's all one kedusha, and therefore you're allowed to go ahead and it permits us to go ahead and prepare on Yontif for Shabbos. So mishum erev tashilin sharin and isir deraisa. I understand. Because of erev tashilin, we're gonna because of this derabanan, we're gonna matter you to do malacha on Yontif for the purpose of something after Yontif for Shabbos. So Malay midaraisa tzarche Shabbos nasa b'Yontif. Really midaraisa, right? Preparing for Shabbos and Yontif is okay. Both of them have the same kedusha. Both of them are considered to be kedushas Yontif. And if it's kedushas Yontif or kedushas Kodesh, let's say, if it's all kedushas Kodesh, it's one kedusha. So therefore, really, from Yontif to Shabbos is not a deraisa. And deraisa, it's all considered to be one, right? However, Rabbanu goes about Gezerah, but the Rabbanan say no, you can't prepare from Yontif to Shabbos. Because if people say that you can do from kedusha, i.e., from Yontif to Shabbos, people then say you can do it from Yontif perhaps to a weekday. But however, once there, so therefore it's only the Rabbanan issue, and therefore if midrabanan we say go ahead and make an erev tashilin, therefore it'll be recognizable that it is considered to be the only reason why we're allowed to do it from Yontif to Shabbos is because there was a erev tashilin, and therefore one will not be confused of preparing from Yontif into Chol. So Esvei has another kasha. What about behema mesukenes lo yishchot? Right? Let's say an animal was dying. It's still kosher. It's still a kosher animal, but we're afraid that the animal is not going to go ahead and basically live out before Yontif. The animal dies, and therefore I can no longer shech the meat. It's going to be a big loss. So behema mesukenes lo yishchot el kadesh yochel echol imena kazayis slibi b'yom. But if I can go ahead and shech and prepare it and have some of it still and roast it and have at least a kazayis of it on Yontif, then I could do it, right? So so now maybe you think, let's say, even if he can eat it, even though he doesn't want to. So according to me, it works well because there's a concept of sense, right? If I want to, I can go ahead and do it, right? However, because if I really chose to, I can go ahead and do it. According to you, but according to you, it says we don't have this concept of hoel. Why can you shecht it on Yontif, right? You're not gonna, you don't want to eat it. So why do you say, since if I would have wanted to eat it, I could, therefore I'm allowed to go ahead and shecht the animal? Well, Lamaisi, you don't. So we don't go to the concept. Same reason why we didn't say, if I would have guessed I can serve them, you don't say the hoel there. So because of there's a large loss of money, right? Right now it's worth a couple $100, right? For kosher meat. If it dies before Yontif is over, I can't check. It's a loss. So Mishum Hefsed Mammon Ashurni Isur Deraisa. So I understand because of a Hefsed of Mammon, right? You're going to permit a person to go ahead and shecht an animal on Yontif. So yeah, Mishum Hefsed Mammon Gamar Beliba Lecho Kazayas. No. Because of the hefsed mammon, therefore, in his heart, he's going to say, oh, I'll eat it. No, it's worth it for me, even though I'm not hungry, right? I'm going to go ahead and I'll shech the animal and I'll roast the meat and I'll be able to eat some on Shabbos. And therefore, since, right, he can't go ahead and have the meat without the shechita, therefore, really, it's not hoel if I would want to eat. No, you do want to eat because I do want to eat because I know if I don't eat it, I'm going to lose thousands or hundreds of dollars, and therefore, so this is not the same hypothetical situation as hoel. This is an actual situation where I want to eat, and therefore, we'll say in this case that it would be mutter for him to go ahead and shech the animal. All right, we'll stop here. Shkoyach, everybody. Tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, same time, and everyone have a lovely day.
Take care. Shkoyach.